All right. So, to introduce ourselves, first, my name is Bilkis Sheikh, and I am the co-leader of Salesforce Mumbai with user group along with Barka. And I have been on this platform since 4+ years. And currently, I'm working as a Salesforce CPQ consultant and at Kandisa Technologies. And I'm 4 times certified and an awesome admin who loves all about points and clicks. And she is Barkha Agrawal. She is with me. Um, she is a senior consultant at Infosys, and she is a Salesforce enthusiast. And she has been working with other platforms as well. She has a vast experience of around 8+ years on SAP platform, SAP, and yeah, she loves Salesforce. It's a new interest. So, and Barkha, if you want to share something about you, then that would be great.
Sure. Thanks,
Okay.
Bilkish. Hi, all. This is Barkha. Bilkish has already given introduction from my end. So yeah, I am excited as always to host these meetups along with Bilkish, and hope this will be another good learning for everybody. That's all.
Okay. Thanks, Barkha. And our guest speaker today is Meighan Brodkey. She is an amazing personality and she is a practice manager over the architecture team and also the technical architect with Exceed Consulting Group. And she is also leading the Seattle WIT group. And she is also a Salesforce MVP and whatnot. You can check her bio at our event page. And you can also personally connect with her. She has also spoken around the globe on various Salesforce topics, and communities is her favorite one. So, Meighan, over to you. If you want to
Thank
share
you.
something. Okay, welcome.
Awesome. Yeah, I am going to steal screen sharing if that is okay.
Yeah.
And fun. Cool. So, hi, I'm Meighan Brodkey. I am based out of Seattle, Washington, over in the U.S. And I am a technical architect. I have been in the Salesforce ecosystem for 12 years. I sort of fell into Salesforce as an accidental customer success manager. Then I became an admin. Becoming an admin, I really enjoyed it. The operations team where I was working got me involved with Apex and Visualforce way back in the day. I tried my hand at development, and I still do some light coding, but my true passion is the platform. I love to see how everything fits together, connecting Salesforce with other systems. I love working on identity, communities, Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, B2B commerce. I love it all. There's just something about Salesforce and being able to learn something new every day and be challenged every day, which just makes it something that, I have found to be the right place for me to be. Not to mention the fact that Salesforce has created such an amazing community with such wonderful people that you can go to an event anywhere in the world and make new friends and feel connected and have something in common to talk about. I can't think of another technology platform that has developed such a connected group of users and partners like Salesforce has. And over the past 12 years, I have gone from being, kind of quiet on the social media side to having my own blog, being on Twitter. I speak at a number of events whenever I can. I try to speak all over the world. Last year, I spoke at the first ever North Africa Dreaming, which was awesome, as well as the first ever Year Dreaming over in Amsterdam, both of which were just great experiences and allowed me to connect with new people. And again, being part of the community and connecting with others. I'm also a Salesforce MVP. If you are not part of the Ohana Inactive, coming to this user group is a great start. Definitely hop on Twitter. There are a ton of Salesforce people out there. The ladies running this group, they're both on Twitter. That's where I met them. And you can also follow me on Twitter as well as on LinkedIn. And yeah, I'm going to be going over a handful of different things today, all of which related to Community Cloud, starting with an overview of what are communities and Community Cloud. We'll dive into some licensing and security. We'll talk a little bit about Community Builder, talk about search. We'll talk about actions and all sorts of fun ways to make communities work for you. We'll also touch on the new Salesforce CMS for both, for all of the different types of CMS that are out there, including native CMS, CMS from your CRM content, as well as CMS Connect. And then we'll talk about some Community Cloud use cases so that you can see just how some of those other places out there are using Community Cloud to connect with their customers, their partners, as well as internally, and build their brand and brand awareness. So to get started, what are communities used for? And I mentioned brand awareness. They're a great way to connect you with your partners and your customers, to connect your partners to your customers, and to connect your customers to each other. When I think about communities in the Community Cloud, I love thinking about Salesforce itself and what used to be the Success community and is now the Trailblazer community. So when you think about each and every one of us and how we're connected, we all came to be together because of a Salesforce community. And I talked before about, during my intro, about how Salesforce was able to just create this whole ecosystem by bringing people together. And did that all via a Salesforce community. Now, mind you, their community is Visualforce and Tabs. And we'd all much rather go with the Lightning community, but that's a long ways coming. It takes a lot of effort to switch over when your community is kind of the community for what we all use. But for places such as Dell, where you can get your help desk, or Starbucks, where you can vote for ideas, all of which are using Salesforce communities. They can be used to promote self-service. I know personally, I hate calling in to call support to get help. It drives me crazy to sit there and wait on hold, especially during COVID. I had to call the bank during COVID. I sat there listening to that hold music for 40 minutes just to tell them that I needed to have my account updated to use the other ATM. It was a 5-minute call once I talked to a person, not even, that I waited on hold for 40 minutes. A community would allow you to connect with that person via chat, or possibly just let you do all of that online. Exposing a knowledge base. When you look at health and training, I mentioned the Dell site before. All those health articles, if you have a Dell computer, when you log in there, we're looking at Salesforce knowledge. If anyone here wants to learn how to ride a motorcycle, the Harley-Davidson Rider School is a great example of how Harley-Davidson has brought together their teachers, as well as all the people that want to learn how to ride a motorcycle, via Salesforce community. They can track their learning, they can track their classes, all of that online. And Lightning communities are mobile responsive. So I don't know how much time I spend on my device. I had an update that started telling me how many hours and how many times I was opening Twitter a day. And after a few days of getting told that I was opening Twitter like 200 and something times a day, I decided that I wasn't going to look at that app anymore. But I can tell you just by the fact that I was getting so embarrassed by how many times I look at my phone and social media. We're all on our phones quite a bit. I mean, we had more technology in our pocket than what it took to send the first astronauts to the moon. And when you've got that with you, you probably want to make sure that what you're looking at is going to adapt to your screen. And I know it frustrates me sometimes when I have to go in and I have to say, oh, let's turn it to the desktop view because I can't get my buttons to work. The great thing about Salesforce communities, they're mobile responsive. They think mobile first. They know we're all living off our devices. And so without even having to do any crazy customizations or go with custom code, you're able to go forward with Salesforce Lightning Community. So who's going to be using these communities and how is the big question. And I can tell you, when I am working on a project, probably one of the most common questions that comes up are questions related to licensing. I once had a customer that decided to save money by going with their quote marks around save money, by the way, by going with customer community licenses, thinking they cost less per month, so we'll just get those because they're cheaper. Well, customer community licenses are great. They're awesome for high volume. So when you have multiple millions of people, for example, within your community. The downside, though, is they have more limitations than other licenses. So, for example, they don't have access to reports. And this specific situation, the customer was like, well, can't we just rebuild our own custom reporting to look like what Salesforce has? The idea of rebuilding something that Salesforce has already invested millions of dollars into is just not the best way to save or to ensure that your users are going to have the best experience possible. So if you have a high volume of users, but they don't need to do things such as reporting or working with leads, they don't need to have approvals assigned to them, customer community licenses are the way to go. If you have users that will need to be making other users on their account and have sort of a company admin, they need access to reports, but maybe they don't need leads and opportunities. You'll want to check out your Customer Community Plus licenses. Following that, you have your partner licenses. Partner licenses are going to be your most robust license. This is where you're going to have access to your leads, your opportunities. You get access to some cool stuff called channel programs, which we'll talk about a little bit today. You also have your guest option. Now, guests often get overlooked when you're thinking about licensing because you don't need a license to be a guest. But when you have a community, you don't have to have it be one where you have to log in. People are able to check out your content in an unauthenticated fashion as a guest. And a guest community is entirely free. Salesforce does guest communities based on page views. Yes, there is a limit to how many page views that you can get before you're charged, but it's a great way to be able to show off your brand, have people be able to access your knowledge base, to be able to create cases, create leads, without having to set up any additional licensing or to have any logins. Now, there are a couple of other types of licenses to consider. There's your Lightning App Starter and your Lightning App Plus. These aren't used as much, but there are other community licenses that you can purchase could have additional custom objects and additional storage space. But mind you, additional comes at an additional cost. So just keep that in mind. And then I listed platform on here as well. So platform licenses are for your internal users. But let's say you're creating a community and you have users at your company that won't be using Salesforce internally so much. They don't need access to every single thing that your current Salesforce team has. Platform licenses are a great option to check out. You still get a number of custom objects. You still can fire off workflow. But you're at a lower cost, which can be happier for any company when looking at, how to get all of their users within Salesforce and using the same service. And then there's the concept of seats versus logins. So when you're thinking about getting your licenses for Salesforce, so this is a big one. When you and I log into Salesforce, we have a seat. We are getting one username is one license. Communities have a bit of a different setup. Yes, you can go that route, but you can also get a login license. And a login license gives you a 1 to 20 setup. So for every 1,000 users, so you can set up for every 1,000 login licenses, you can set up 20,000 users, because it's not basing it off of the usernames, it's basing it off of how many times they're logging into your org. So if they don't log in very frequently, let's say IT has to log in every day to log a case, because you work at a computer hardware place. And so those IT people would probably need a seat. But your executives, the ones that are just there to possibly run a report once a quarter, maybe log in here and there to see where stuff is at, but they're not regularly logging in. Take a look at getting a seat at seats for them, or getting logins instead of seats for them. You can do a combination of logins and seats within your community. You can say that a large number of communities that I've worked on do have a combination. They also have a combination of the different types of licenses: customer community plus, and partner. And so you can always mix and match within the same community, and you're not held to having to have, this is our customer community, you can only have customer community plus. So here's just a visual that goes over a bit more. You'll notice here, again, high volume. This is where your reports and dashboards come into play, and that delegated admin, that external admin. You also have sharing rules that come into play here. So high volume users with that customer community license, they do not get access to sharing rules. So something else to think about as well in setting up your org. So speaking of this sharing, how are you going to set up your sharing for your community? There's a bunch of different options. But the cool thing about communities is you can actually access special community-only features and functionality to help you do your sharing. One of my all-time favorites, and it should be your go-to every time you're setting up, like for your first place to look, every time you set up sharing for a community user, is with sharing sets. And sharing sets to a match on, does this user's contact, because every community user has to be associated with contact, does their contact match the contact on this record, or does the contact's account actually account on this record? And if so, share. And by having this dynamic ability, you're able to share a large number of records with as many users as needed without having to worry about customizations for every user. Sharing rules are a bit limited. For one, they're not available with Customer Community Plus. And two, you only get 50 sharing rules for your object. So if you have 52 customers, owner-based sharing rules are out. You've made, depending on how secure your data has to be, even criteria-based sharing rules could be out. So take your sharing rules with a grain of salt. They should not be, they should be looked at as few and far between and only used for sharing large amounts of records with large groups, not with an individual account. Then you also have account relationship sharing. So this is pretty cool. It came out about a year ago, GA, and they're kind of like sharing sets on steroids, so to speak. They allow you to create these custom relationships, and instead of matching on the account or contact, they match on the account or the user. And you can decide, so we have this account here, we want them to be the consultant on this account, and we want to put parameters on this. So sharing sets always share. With a account relationship, you can say stop sharing once the project ends, or if their lease is over, no longer share their data with them. And then channel programs are similar to how, if you've ever worked with a Salesforce partner, they've probably told you if they're gold, if they're silver, if they're bronze. I don't even know if there was bronze. If they're gold, they're silver, or platinum. Let's go with that. So channel program works in that similar fashion, where you can come up with any type of category you want, either by rank, or perhaps you want to do it by geography. Maybe you want to do it by their favorite color. It's entirely up to you because you're using data to set this up, and you can use channel programs to do so. And then you can use those channel program groups, or channel program levels as they're called, for your audience criteria and dynamic components within the community. You can use them for share groups, all sorts of things. And then last but not least, there's Apex sharing. Apex sharing can be a wonderful thing, but it can also be your greatest nightmare. It can get so complex and so convoluted. So if at all possible, like with most things for Salesforce, stick with declarative over code. And then this is just a bit of a sharing pyramid that people often see. I've just updated it here to include your community-related sharing items and how they fall in with each other. And so your foundation of sharing is going to be very similar to internal Salesforce, with the fact that your profile and your perm sets are your foundation. If you don't have access to an object via a profile or a perm set, you're not going to have access to an object. Your org-wide defaults are important as well, and knowing, are you going to be, is your object going to be public? It's going to be private. It's going to be public read only, public read write. You have the new functionality that came out just back with Winter, where you can now check a checkbox within your sharing settings to say that all objects should be made private to guests. This can be extremely helpful. So I definitely recommend checking it out as well. And then last but not least, you're also held to your licensing restrictions. If you have customer community, you're not going to be able to see leads. You just can't make that magic happen. Their license prevents it. They just don't have that access. And so your experience builder. So building in communities can be a lot of fun. The Community Cloud team is regularly adding to what is available for you and what types of things you can do. And so first off, you have your template, and that is your foundation. You can pick an out-of-the-box template, such as customer service or Partner Central, or you can install a template from the App Exchange. And and check those out. I recommend just playing around with whichever ones you can in your dev board just to see what's out there for the for templates, both out of the box and from the App Exchange. The next thing that comes into play with your community for how things are presented to your users is your theme. So your template is going to tell you what components you have and what pages come with that template at creation. You can always add more objects, and you can always build custom components. But your theme is kind of, and I'm going to date myself here, it's kind of like having a scan on your Winamp, okay? Like way back in the day, like Napster days. Or a wallpaper on your phone, where you're going to decide that you're going to have this different UI, but your foundational template is still the same. And then last but not least, you have components. And components are small pieces of functionality that you drag and drop onto the screen. And you can use them to, for example, the activities component. You have a record detail component. So those are just the individual pieces of, just like within Lightning, for your community. The other thing that comes up are bullet templates. So a bullet is a packaged App Exchange app that allows you to have either a template, a theme, or a page layout. You can add flows to these. They get you kick-started. They're a quick start to start your community. They are by no means an end to everything that you need. One thing to keep in mind is if you are working on a bullet template or working with one, you only get your default pages. You don't get any page variation. You don't get any audiences. So if you are building a template for a bullet and you have an authenticated and unauthenticated view of the same page, only one of those will actually show up in the bullet, and it's the one that is marked default. And then using search. So search in a community, it's very similar to using search within Salesforce, except for the fact that you have two different search components. You have one that just shows you discussions and articles from knowledge. And then you have another one that's totally customizable that you can put any objects onto that are within your community and that are available. And you can also create different search pages. Just because an object is in your community doesn't mean you possibly want it searchable. So you get to configure this yourself and make it as customized and set up the way that you want it to. And you can also set up the search bar at the top of the page, or perhaps it's in the middle of your page, depending on your theme, where you can decide what terms do I want to have autocomplete from which objects. Should this search help my users discover what they're looking for? Maybe it's a security risk for you to do that. So definitely something to think about before just jumping in. And having fun with out of the box. So communities don't have to be super complex. You always want to set them up to be at a release such as phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, going with all the bells and whistles in the beginning. Sure, you could do that, but do you know everything that your customers are going to want? There's nothing worse than spending, $500,000 on a community only to find out that you went entirely the wrong direction. So stick with out of the box, especially on that first release, as much as you can. Not everything's possible out of the box. So there's the fact that you may have some custom development, but you can jazz things up. Like I said, your theme is your skin. It's just the pretty on top of the template. You can use the Shepson theme, for example, and you get this cool hero unit, and you can have buttons, or you can have a search, and it's out of the box. You no longer have to build that custom or install it. One thing to be careful with, though, is you're using the same template, but your theme may have different branding. Maybe you just lost the image within your little paintbrush on the side, or maybe you have less colors that you get a set. So something to think about. Custom components, like I mentioned, your out of the box may not do everything you need. So going custom, since you get those pieces that you don't have. And there's nothing wrong with going custom where needed. So always remember that as well. Now, the going custom everywhere, some places do need that pixel perfect look. So for example, GE uses Salesforce, and they have a very customized look for their communities to work with their customers and partners. And so they have a custom theme and a custom template, and that helps them get pixel perfect. And one of the other things about communities is that when you are using them, global actions become your best friend. And they are fantastic. They work just like they do inside of Lightning. Where you can create a page layout, you can set predefined fields. Now, one thing to be aware of is just like in Lightning, if you're using global actions for leads or cases, they're not going to fire your assignment rules. So you'll want to have either a plugin, an app, perhaps you want to use a process builder or flow to make sure that your assignment rules get launched. And then moving into CMS. So I love CMS. I'm going to tell you that right now. Don't mind me if I get a little bit over the top here, but CMS is some of my favorite functionality with Salesforce. And so what is it and how do you use it? So you have 3 different types of CMS. We're going to start with native CMS. So native CMS is done within Salesforce internal. And you are able to make things such as a banner, an image, news. Let's say you have, regular posts that you want to put up on your blog from different people at your company. Native CMS is fantastic. Let's say you want to have a banner image telling people that, hey, we're still open during COVID. Native CMS. We're just only on the phone. So all sorts of different use cases. So the thing about native CMS is knowing the line between where do you want to draw the line between CMS content and knowledge content. And same thing with custom objects. It's all about figuring out what are your rules for when building. And I think it's great for dropping things on the home page. It's great when you want to have things displayed in a pretty fashion. And being able to use native CMS and open up the ability to publish without giving users access to Builder, talk about awesome. So no longer do you need to give somebody that ability to be inside Community Builder. Instead, you can just give them the ability to make CMS articles. You can also set up approval processes here for your CMS. People will be able to go through, they can say yes or no, they can send things back for review. Really helpful, especially when thinking about that content and the fact that up until CMS, people could just write whatever they wanted within the community on a rich text component and hit the publish button. You can also reuse your content. If you have multiple communities, you no longer have to make your content inside each and every one. You can have your content shared by opening up that CMS workspace to multiple communities and networks. And that includes not only Lightning communities, but that also includes Heroku, B2B commerce, B2C commerce, etc. So lots of options for where you can display that information. And you can also sort these and filter these and decide what's on the page based on tagging things manually by having specific topics, And then also with your Salesforce CRM CMS, you are able to display Salesforce data as content. I love this one, for example, for using a product catalog where people are able to display an image of products instead of just having your standard list view. Again, it's a way to just pretty up Salesforce pretty up your community within Salesforce. And the Salesforce CRM CMS I use this in pretty much every single community that I have built. And I just find it just awesome. Since there isn't a user list view, perhaps you want to have the contact list view and include a picture on there for each one of your users. You can do that and then display them in a tile with your Salesforce CRM CMS. And again, this can have a detail page, and it can also have a list page. One thing to keep in mind with these is that when you are working with them, when you select your object and you decide what you want to have displayed, it is actually going to use the fields based on a list view. So make sure you have a list view that has the fields that you want to use within that visual display and or links. And then you also have CMS Connect. This one is so much fun. So one thing you are able to do here is you can connect to external sources. Two stories. I promise. I'm just going to tell you. One, if you have a blog on your website, say, for example, you're using WordPress, one thing that people want to do is keep your community users within your community. Once you leave the community, you have a less likely chance of coming back. And you can do that with CMS Connect. Another example is a few years back, I was on a project and we had to set up Adobe AEM and integrate it into Salesforce. This ended up being a 6-month project, and then it was another 3-4 month project afterwards, because of the fact that there was just so much to go through, and there were all these different libraries and getting everyone organized. Well, now you can connect to Adobe AEM in minutes and bring over all those language libraries plus all those content libraries. All that work, all that custom development, and CMS Connect knocks it out of the park. It is so fantastic. If you haven't set this up or played around with it, I recommend giving it a try. It's fantastic. And then to talk about some of the use cases when you are working with communities, how are people using communities? So I mentioned self-service. Everybody thinks of self-service when they think of a community too. You need to go online, use your knowledge articles. You need to be able to make a case. You can have your knowledge base alone. You can have your customers and your partners collaborate together. And an example of this would be, I don't want to use Salesforce again. So for example, when working with, when you are working in technology, so I'm going to use Salesforce for this one. It's too easy. Sorry. So your customer partners, we all talk to partners on the Trailblazer community. It's fantastic. And they talk to us. We also talk to Salesforce. That is that big circle collaboration. You can also pull in your social media. Now, there aren't out-of-the-box social media widgets, but I've worked on a number of projects where we have done either an RSS feed or we've had timeline widgets, etc., or components that can be used to display not only your own social media content, but share the brand's social media content as well. And I highly recommend checking those out. see what's out there, see what's available, both on the exchange and for ideas for your team. When it comes to field service lightning, so I've done a couple of field service lightning communities where people are able to go in, they can schedule an appointment with a technician, they can see where their technician is. Dispatch is able to schedule different technicians within the community. They may not be internal employees at the dispatch office. So giving them access to Salesforce isn't always the right choice. You can also have your field service representatives available via, rescheduled via a bot. So bring those Einstein bots in, have somebody, say, hey, I'm going to need to move something. Well, which appointment do you want to move? Have the bot display which appointments they have. You can also do internal employee collaboration. So when you think about the fact that back in the day, all these companies had these SharePoint sites, they had all these old school intranets. I love the word intranet because it just sounds like it's very 90s. So you can replace all those. And so you want to post your HR info. You want to be able to talk about, what benefits are available. Does anyone have that sheet for what the holidays are? I know I never remember what holidays we have off. That type of information can be stored on a community and shared out. And it's in a centralized location, and even better, it's tied to your Salesforce data. So you don't have to be recreating data. You can also set up a community to work on your projects with your customers and get feedback from them, or to have them communicate with you post-project. So that the use case of working with communities are endless. I did a presentation for the Calgary user group in Canada a month ago, and I spent the entire hour just going through different use cases. And we are now, and I know I rushed a little bit, I apologize, but we are now to questions. I want to leave plenty of time for questions. So, what's up, everybody?
Thank you, Meighan. So for the questions, we see we have 2 on the chat. If you can access the chat, or maybe I can read out to you. Can you access the chat?
Yep, let me just hop on over. All right, so let's see here. So you can, okay, so starting from the CMS, so you can display information to customer community users with CMS. They don't need to be Customer Community Plus. So you are able to do that. You can also display CMS Connect to those users. When it comes to Salesforce CRM CMS, the only restrictions are the same restrictions they have with their license. So customer community wouldn't be able to see leads, for example. But you can absolutely start working with CMS. I know you didn't used to be able to, but you can now. And then we also have, I have a partner community and want to give them a personalized experience. How can I have different logos and theme for different partners? So you can use a couple of different ways. You can have the experience ID, which you can use for some of your branding. And that's a possibility. Now, if you want to take that even further, you are also able to look at going even more custom. The experience ID lets you swap out logos, for example, your default logos, with just a curly bracket, EXP ID curly bracket in the URL instead of having a hard-coded logo. And it's a great option for giving a personal touch while still staying out of the box. But if you want to have an extremely personalized view, definitely look at going custom. And we also I have a partner community. And you wrote it twice. I'm so sorry. No, this is a different one. As for the theme though, so when you're talking about your theme, so are you talking about actually having a totally different like page layout for like your home page or for like your search bar? Or are you more so looking for just a different brand type of look? Because if you are looking for, okay. Yeah, and you can use different branding. So if the answer was no, I'm looking for just logo, CSS, and color. So you could also use branding set to help you out here. And you can assign a branding set built in the little paintbrush on the left-hand side. You can assign that based on values on your user or via your user to your contact to your account, the whole 5 degrees down. And so that way you can actually come up with, I may be looking at this page, and for me, it's going to be all pretty and pink and purple. But, my boyfriend's not a huge fan of pink. So if he's going to log in, that's probably not what he's going to want to see. And so his branding set would probably be a different color. And again, all out of the box and available to you. And if you want to give a different layout in tabs, so they actually just came. So I was hoping you were going to ask about tabs. Summer 20, they just came out with the ability to personalize your navigation bar. Can you believe it? We've only been waiting years. Now you can do that same type of customization based on, selecting, features off the user or their contact or their account. But that is finally available to us. So exciting. Yeah, I definitely recommend checking it out. I was playing with it in my org. It's got a community that's coming out. I was actually on a deployment call today. And I was using one of my orgs to play around to see if I could try to make one of the optional requirements work for navigation with the new summer personalization navigation. Super cool stuff. No problem. Any other questions?
Okay, so any other questions from anyone? They can unmute themselves, talk, or they can ping on chat. Okay, I think those were the questions. So we are good, Meighan. Thanks a lot for such a wonderful and informative session. So Bilkish, over to you.
Thanks, Baka. Thank you, Meighan, so much for sharing your gold knowledge with us. That was an awesome session. And so, I think...
Thank you for having me, by the way. Much appreciated. And thank you, everyone, for showing up today.
Yeah, that's our pleasure. Thanks, Meighan. All right, so let's move